All right. I think it's official now. I think we're officially live on the Help a Teacher Facebook page. Man, you guys, we were live on a whole nother page for a second ago, but we're back. All right, here we go. So last week and the week before, we were talking about the fuel required to make it through the school year and how October gets tough, and that's when reality sits in. And what we talked about last week and the week before that was taking a moment and really getting clear about what you want for your kids as a result of those kids spending their lives with you. For the rest of their lives, there's this one lesson that they'll be a part of who they are and their heart and their DNA. That it's the lesson they're going to pass down to their kids and their family. And what is that? What is that for you at your classroom? Using the content of your classroom as the vehicle to teach that. What is that? And then we talked about getting clear about why this school? Like, I could teach on a lot of different schools. Why this one? Why these kids? Why this content? Why this community? And when we take a few minutes each and every day to dig down into that and think deeply about that and really kind of sit in a moment of gratitude and have a moment where we start thinking about how much we appreciate just the opportunity. You know, it's that opportunity. It's the most honorable, important profession on the planet. And thinking about how thankful I am to have this opportunity, that these kids, that I've accepted that honor. I've accepted the privilege of standing before these kids, and these kids will forever be changed because of my work with them. And when you have that moment of gratitude, it really changes everything. And listen, I know there's a lot to prepare. I get it. And oftentimes in the morning, we're rushing to school and we're late and we're trying to get our own kids out the door and people fed and have a lunch packed, but getting into the classroom and having just a few minutes before you open up the door and before the family crosses that threshold of the door to join you in that classroom, to have a moment and really get in that space of gratitude and being thankful for the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of these kids. And, you know, the other thing I was thinking about is, like, I know for me that who I am personally really is the limiting factor on what I can achieve professionally. So I'm always thinking about, you know, I can't, my classroom family, my kids in my classroom, they can only reach a certain level, and that level is determined by who I am and where I'm at in my life. So I'm always trying to push myself a little bit further and think, how can I become a better person for those kids? Because those kids, if they're going to be it, they have to see it. They have to see that for me. I have to see it so they can be it. I got to show it if I'm going to grow it in those kids. So, you know, the person I always think about when these thoughts cross my mind is kim-strobel. She's a friend of mine, and she's one of my favorite speakers. She's one of my favorite experts on the stage, and just does a great job of authentically communicating the truth about teaching. And she's a teacher. She's a happiness coach. And I thought, you know what, let me bring her in and we can chat about this, because I have some questions I want to get to the bottom of. All right, kim-strobel. There. Hey. My goodness.
Happy
Hey,
to be
listen.
here.
So here's what I'm thinking is this whole concept of like who I am. Like I can't give away that which I don't have. So I have to figure out, how can I improve myself, become a better person so I can be a better teacher for my kids? Because I think that's really where that also plays a role in the foundation of happiness for teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for one thing, you know, there's this quote I tell people all the time, which is, you're not selfish for putting yourself first some of the time. I mean, teachers are, a lot of times we're super type A, really ambitious, driven, perfectionistic in nature. I mean, I call an ace an ace. That's kind of how I was as a teacher. And it's really easy, I think, Hal, to leave every day and kind of get the good old ball and chain out and whip ourselves across the back and tell ourselves, you know, I didn't handle this well today. I didn't teach this lesson as well as I wanted to. I didn't deal with this kid as well. And I think like we forget that all the stuff that we really did right that day, because we have these super high expectations of ourselves, which I want us to have those, but we also have to keep our cup kind of filled up for the most part. We have to make sure we have well-being in check and self-care strategies, and we're taking time to renew ourselves outside of the classroom so that we do step into the classroom and really bring that best version of ourselves, both in our professional life and in our personal life. And what does that look like? Well, that means that we have to take 100% responsibility for our life. I mean, here's the deal. When you really think about when we kind of cross the threshold, we walk into the classroom every day. I mean, I know just hearing you talk, it actually gets me emotional. It does every time, even when I'm talking about it on stage, because here's the deal. No other profession influences, impacts, and really has the ability to change the trajectory of a student's life like teaching, Deb. Like there's no other profession out there that does that 180 days a year, year after year after year. So like, here's the deal. Teachers matter. Like we matter in a big way.
Yeah. You know what I think I really wish we did a better job is at helping teachers recognize and see the evidence that it's working. Like, I think we do a really good job at showing them the data and look at our test scores are improving and our attendance rates are up. But the fact we're changing a kid's life, we're making a monumental difference in the life of a kid. I really wish we focus more on showing the teachers the evidence of that, because like that trajectory, I think sometimes like as an educator, we want this mountaintop moment where we think, oh my gosh, look at what I did today. When really it's the tiniest thing. When there's a tiniest shift in that kid's trajectory, that kid is going to end up 10 years from now, 20, 30, 40 years from now, kid is going to end up in a whole different universe because of that one tiny sentence or one conversation that was had on that day in that classroom with that teacher.
You know, I got two things to say about this. There's this thing called the butterfly effect, and I think there's a documentary on it. But the premise of that documentary is the fact that a butterfly's wings here in Tell City, Indiana, the one that I saw flying through the field today, actually is affecting the continent of Asia and Africa. I mean, like it has this like ripple effect, and we just do not understand how these small little things are affecting so much more than what we can see. And I really do feel like it's that with our kids. And I tell teachers, like, here's the deal. I think that some days when you walk out of that classroom, if the only thing you did was you loved a child, well, my golly, I think you did your job that day. If you made a child feel loved, I think you did your job that day. And you and I talk about this all the time. It is about relationships and having the permission to develop those and not being so content driven and having to get through the story of the week and the chapter in social studies. And, you know, it really comes down to so much more. I mean, I tell teachers all the time, like, you don't want them to leave your classroom and just be good at science or good at math. You want them to leave your classroom. And every teacher I know, they want kids to be good at life, you know?
Yeah. You know, Stacy says, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I love that. And here, but you know what? I remember years ago when I first started, I remember I was in college and I got my first little personal growth book. And I think the guy's name, it was Italian. I want to say his name was Leo Buscaglia. And if you want to look it up, I think it's with a G. Like I think if I was going to say it phonetically, it might be Buscaglia, but I think it's pronounced Buscaglia, Leo Buscaglia. And I remember one of the quotes in that book was, it says, you cannot give away that which you do not have. And I really got into that. But then I thought, well, wait a minute. Well, how do I acquire that stuff? Like, how do I bring that into my life? How do you bring, if you want to be more confident, how do you bring that in? If you want to be more courageous, how do you bring that in? More loving? So then I realized for me, I think a more accurate quote, instead of you cannot give away that which you do not have, for me would be, I need to give away all that I want to have. Like for me, like if I want to be more courageous, I have to encourage a whole lot of other people. And if I want to be more confident, it helps me. I can do that by instilling confidence in a whole bunch of other people. And like, I think that's why you find so many incredible people in this profession, is because all these teachers have become what they've given away to all those kids.
I do agree 100% with that. But from a happiness coaching perspective, I also know that I think it's really hard for teachers to give to themselves and to understand that their personal joy in and out of the classroom actually comes from what their personal life looks like outside of the classroom. And how are they replenishing themselves? What are they doing to renew themselves? Because, you're not selfish for putting yourself first some of the time. Here's what I know. Kim-strobel is such a better wife when she's had 1 hour out of 24 hours every single day to do her exercise or to do her meditation or to write out her 10 gratitudes. And I'm a better mom and I'm a better human being when I understand that I too am worthy of giving to myself, so that I am coming from a place of positivity and not negativity. You know, it's really easy to look around and see, like, you and I would be the first ones to admit, like, this is one of the hardest professions out there. I'll tell you what, teachers are stressed out and teachers are burned out and they're overwhelmed. And I get it. I see it. It's like one thing after another has been piled on. But what I really want to encourage us to do is like to understand that this is like 100% our responsibility. I mean, the happiness research says that only about 10% of your long-term happiness comes from your external circumstances. And so what that really means is that we have the ability to decide what kind of perspective we want to have and what we're going to allow that filters into our system. And I know we were talking about this a little bit when we were accidentally on your Facebook page, but like, you know, I'm an intentional person. And so, you know, I'm not going to read every like negative post about the teaching profession. I'm not going to allow, because whatever you focus on grows, you know? So, and I always tell people this too, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So, you know, we got to be really careful about what we allow that comes into like my head, so that when I step in there, I'm stepping in there with enthusiasm. I'm stepping in there with grace. I'm stepping in there with service and gratitude for the grand opportunity that I've been lucky enough to have bestowed upon me.
Yeah. You know, I think social media, that is a dangerous spot for educators because, you know, as we start to we scroll down and we see, you know, I just saw the article today was, you know, teacher pens an open letter on why she's leaving the profession after 25 years and being teacher of the year. And, you know, and she lists this whole thing about why she's leaving the profession. And then I scroll down a little bit more and there's some sarcastic comedy type article about the 10 kinds of parents you encounter when you call home. And then there's another one, kind of another sarcastic, you know, hint of funny in an article about, you know, the 25 different types of meetings teachers find themselves in. And I guess they are funny to a certain extent, but over time, when that's all it is, and that's feeding your mind. And then here is the double whammy, like, and then you flip over to Instagram or Pinterest and you see some unbelievably filtered classroom. And you think, my classroom has never, not even on the first day was that clean. And I certainly don't have mauve as my theme for the year. And, you know, and like, I don't feel that cute. And there she is, like, and oh my gosh. And then I feel like I'm failing. And then I'm in this toxic mood from all the other articles. So, like, I think it's so important to really regulate and monitor what's seeping in through the eyeballs and the ears and what we're processing in our brain.
It is. You know, here's the deal. The average human being, you know, being the happiness researcher that I am, the average human being has about between like 70 and 90,000 thoughts a day. Now, here's the deal. If you're super zen, you're clocking in at about 50 to 60,000. And if you're stressed, you're clocking in about 120,000 thoughts a day. The average human being, Hal, 80% of those thoughts are negative in a day's time. And I mean, this is just like our brain, our reptilian brain is wired for negative. From generations ago in the caveman days, our brains learned to scan for any possible thing that might be wrong in an effort to protect ourselves. And so that reptilian brain is still functioning today. And the only way we can change that is we get to do this kind of rewirement on it. All right. Because I mean, if I take everybody back to the first 30 seconds when you woke up this morning, I always make like a funny joke about this, but like some of us had 57 negative thoughts before we made it to the bathroom. Right. You know, like we were like, oh, dang, you know, the alarm went off. I didn't get good sleep. Oh, shoot, I got to go to work today. Oh, man, it's just Monday. And then like you're walking to the bathroom and you're like, oh, my knees hurt. And then you get to the bathroom and I'm like, shoot, there's that fever blister. It just came back. And then I put my pants on. I'm like, these are feeling kind of tight, you know? And so like it happens from the moment we get up if we're not intentional. And so what's really crazy is that 95% of the 80% of negative thoughts are the exact same thoughts you had the day before. Yeah. So do you know how we change that? It's what you were talking about earlier, gratitude. Gratitude is one of the top 5 happiness habits, and we can actually rewire the neural connections in our brains by coming up with 3 things that you're thankful for before you even walk into that classroom.
Yeah.
I actually encourage teachers to do this with their students too, because again, we want to rewire their brains towards positive. And so we start the first 90 seconds of every day. Everybody goes around. What are you thankful for? Boom, 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 boom. Before you know it, you've got 27 gratitudes that you've all been exposed to.
That's such an important thing. And really, because of all this research, we have lost the right to say those things that we used to say, 10 and 20 years ago. Well, my grandmother was like this and my mom was like this. Well, I'm just like this too. No, you're like that because you're choosing to be like that. Because now we have the answer. Like now we have the research, and you're right. Those first few minutes of class, greeting those kids at the door, that moment, that first eye contact, the handshake, high five, hug, whatever it is, that moment of the greeting, and then when our family comes together, their first 3 minutes together, what happens in those first 3 minutes really can set the stage. And I've never found anything more powerful than gratitude and sharing what you're happy about in your life. And what we always did in my classroom, hey, tell me the best thing that's happened over the last 23 hours since we last saw each other.
Yeah, I love that. That's really important. And even if you have them spend like a 1 minute reflection writing about that, we know that goes really far. The research actually says if you come up with 3 different things that you're thankful for every day for 21 days, that is how you rewire the connections in your brain. It's the same thing with kids.
Yep.
So, you start out with that 90 seconds, you get them in the flow after 2 or 3 weeks of putting their gratitude, and then maybe we up it. And then we write 3, or we write 3 before we go home, or we write 3 after lunch. But I think like this helps all of us, that gratitude is one of those things that really it sounds like such a simple thing to do, and it is, but what's not simple is making it a habit. So you have to have a cue. You have to have something that cues you to do that habit every single day.
Hey, let me ask you this. There is, I saw a post recently about a teacher she was completely honest. She called in for a sub, and she said, because I just cannot do it. I am exhausted. I'm stressed out. I can't make it happen. I need to recharge. I need to refuel. I need to refresh, and I need a day. And she took a day off.
Let me just tell you. So I would say that teacher is making one of the most important decisions from a professional standpoint. And in fact, get this. So my top keynote that I travel around the country giving is the science of happiness. And it comes straight out of the fact that we are now going into schools and into the corporate world and understanding that well-being is super important. That I'm not here to teach you one more strategy. Actually getting your teacher well-being to the forefront is going to make you more productive, both in your professional life and in your personal life. So I would say that it would be a giant leap in the right direction is if we gave teachers mental health days. Like, I appreciate that teacher's honesty. Back in the day, I'll be 100% honest with you, Hal. I took mental health days. I probably took at least 3, if not 4, every single year. Now, I didn't have the courage to call it that because we knew back then for sure we would get our hands slapped. We probably are still getting our hands slapped today for it, but we really need to change what is acceptable when it comes to taking care of our mental health.
Yeah, I had and by the way, we're talking about a mental health day. We're not talking about a day where you go get your new tires and you get them root canal and you like just one for you where you refuel and take care of yourself. That kind of help mental health day. I did my last principal I had. She was amazing about it and complete. She would say, yeah, by all means, just please don't do it on a Monday or a Friday.
Yeah, right. Well, we're always going to do it on a Friday, but all right.
Don't worry, I promise I won't do it on a Friday.
Right.
Never.
We're talking PJs. We're talking vegging out on Outlander all day in front of the TV or going and getting a massage or like whatever it is. It's so important. And I really do think, the corporate world is changing. We're starting to recognize that if we want our employees to be their best, they need to feel like they have opportunity and ample time to renew themselves.
Yeah. You know what, Brenda? Brenda is she's saying, in her first grade classroom that her kids, like when they feel loved, then she's ready to teach all the stuff, but the loving, that's the foundation upon which we deliver the content. And I love that she shares it. Like in first grade, everybody knows it, but here's what I'm telling you, it's the same thing in 7th grade. It's the same thing in junior year, senior year. It's the same thing everywhere, every time for everyone. Like that will forever be the foundation. The quality and how solid that foundation of the relationship is really determines the effectiveness of the delivery of the content.
Yeah, I think that as a society, as an educational society, and the expectations, we've kind of gotten lost in the fray. Like we get lost in what to teach and how to teach and when to teach, when the very foundation is exactly what Brenda is talking about. Actually, it starts with relationships first, and that needs to be our foundation layer, and that's what we build upon before we ever teach the content. So she is spot on with that comment. Yeah, that her kids in her first grade classroom feel loved. We need them to feel loved in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade too. You know what? Here's the thing. I did these interviews several years ago where I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of kids, and I wanted to know who their favorite teacher was, but more importantly, I wanted to know why. And I kind of went through and put all of their answers together, and 2 major themes were a part of every single answer I got, Hal. And they were this. Number 1, my teacher makes me feel loved. High school kids said it too. That's why it was their favorite teacher. And the second one that was just as important was, like, my teacher's happy. I can tell he wants to be there. He's excited to be there. And then, they knew the ones that were not excited, that were just going through the day, that, I mean, like that's a hard thing for a kid to carry. And so over and over, I got the exact same version of those 2 answers right there. My teacher's happy and my teacher makes me feel loved. Didn't matter what grade level it was. They all came back like that.
And you know what? And, I do that same thing to this day. I still talk to people, in airport and, so just if I'm on an elevator, I'm about to ask you a question. I was in the doctor's office. I talked to everybody about it, and I said, hey man, tell me about your teacher. Who comes to mind first? And everybody, it's 100%. Everybody has a teacher that they can remember and that they'll talk about, and they'll ask them why. And it's the same thing, whether if you're talking to a 15-year-old kid or a 55-year-old woman in the doctor's office, it's the same answer. It's some version of the fact that they know that they knew that their teacher loved them, and the teacher loved being there. The teacher loved the job. They were passionate about it. And half the time they couldn't even remember any of the content from the classroom. They don't remember any of that stuff, but they knew they loved the teacher and they loved being there.
What about that, that they had all the beautiful bulletin boards and the mauve walls and, the unicorn themed, like, like that stuff's great, but like, I think we got to be careful about what we spend our energy on. Cause like that stuff can wipe us out, trying to get our classroom looking perfect. As a former curriculum director, I'm just going to tell you, and I'm a control freak. So my classroom wasn't super messy. Now going back, I would have it a little more messy or messier, but like the best classrooms I walked in, Bowman, the best classrooms I walked in were the ones that were just a darn mess.
Yeah.
That's where real teaching was happening, man. They were just, everything wasn't controlled. It was kind of chaotic, but man, was there meaningful stuff going on in that classroom.
Hey, listen, when my kid would come home from school, I would, he's got dirt on his face and paint in his hair and glue stick up his nose and dirt on his knees. And that's a big day of learning right there, brother.
That's a good day. You got it. Yeah.
Kim-strobel, man, thanks so much for hanging out with us, man. I really, really appreciate you. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any open events or people can enroll for? Anything coming up?
Yeah, actually, we're hosting some workshops in the coming months. You can go to strobeleducation.com and you can see some workshops. We're going to be teaching some growth mindset and trauma-informed schools, standards-based grading, all that good stuff. But here's the deal. Every training I do has to have like the happiness coaching infused because my teachers need that so badly. Yeah. So yeah, go to strobeleducation.com. You can see where we're at and love to see you. So thanks for having me. Always a good time to talk about just real stuff that's happening in our classrooms with our teachers. And I'll look forward to seeing some of these comments as we go back through here later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Thank you. You as well. Goodbye. Good night.
Good night.